Welcome back, TIL Nation, for the Pastor's Perspective Podcast, where y'all know what we do. We sit down, we talk to our pastor and our leader about the different things that's going on in society today, the different things going on in the culture, and we get his perspective on those things. So, how you doing today, Pastor?
Doing good, Angelo. How about yourself?
I'm good. And like always, thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And we appreciate you for giving us your perspective.
Yes, sir.
So, Pastor, we are in year 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all can agree that these last couple years have been a little unpredictable,
Yes.
a little rough.
Mhm.
We've experienced a lot, not just as a ministry, but just as a nation, as a world.
Sure.
Right? Going into year 2022, you've named this year the year of elevation.
Right.
Before I start with the different themes that you go with, kind of tell me, how do you go about picking each theme, right?
Right.
What gives you, the idea behind giving each year a theme and what the ministry will roll with?
Well, very good question. It is a team effort between my wife and I. It's something as we're winding down the year, we start getting into September, October, in the year that we're currently in, and we'll begin praying about what it is that God desires for us to be able to present to the church or present to the congregation as relates to a theme. And I use the term theme very loosely because that's what they're known for. They're known as themes. But if we're not careful, the theme can become very cliche-ish. As I always kind of make fun and say, "Oh, we're coming alive in '05, and we're gonna walk straight in '08."
Catchy titles.
Yeah, catchy title. It's more than that because we're literally seeking the face of God. I think it's a combined effort of seeing where we are presently as a ministry, seeing what it is that God has been doing in our ministry, and as leaders, because we're the leaders, we're out front. We should see a little further. We should see things a little differently, and where it is that God desires for us to be able to go as a ministry. So it's a lot of thought, a lot of prayer, a lot of analyzing, really being forensically going through the ministry on where we currently are and where we sense God desires to take us at in the future. And I think that's kind of where the themes come in at.
So let's take it back to the start.
Mm-hmm.
Year 1, 2015.
Yes, sir.
Which was the year of manifestation.
Yes, sir.
What was it that you and Lady C were seeking to manifest, right? As you kicked off the ministry, you kind of talked a lot about those first sessions where it was just you and a couple other people.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine, like anything, when we start something, we all want the lights, right?
Right,
We all
sure.
want that big following. But obviously you stuck with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Having a few members, and of course, you see where we're at now. What was it that you guys were seeking to manifest in the year 2015?
Oh man, it wasn't a whole lot of prayer going on that one. Now, do that. I'm only kidding. Man, it was. We were seeking just to be obedient, and I think that, man, I had personally had toiled with launching this ministry, birthing this ministry, as you just alluded to. I talk about all the time how I was on my dream job. All I ever wanted to do was be in full-time ministry. So I kind of reluctantly kind of obeyed God in the sense of I was good. I was comfortable. And so we really didn't know what to expect. We really didn't know how things were going to pan out, how it was going to look. We didn't know. We knew it was going to be challenging. We didn't have, of course, we've never done anything like this before, so we didn't have any idea on what to expect. We've heard stories and know about ministries and things of that nature, but for us to do it ourselves, we just wanted to obey God, and so the manifestation is just us coming forth. It's just us coming into the earth. It's coming from something that God put in my heart to something that's now being materialized, and I think that's basically was the whole crux of that first year was just stepping out and just simply obeying God. And see what happens, Angelo, because not only is it a new calendar year for everybody, but it's also a new year in ministry for us. So this would be year 7 for us, this year of elevation. But that manifestation, that was in January. I like saying January that way. I know how to say it, but January 2015, January the 4th, that was our coming out. That was our birthing. That was our launching. And so in a real sense, it just was obeying God and just hanging on for dear life.
Right. So as you crossed over to 2016, the year of expansion.
Yes, sir.
Is there ever a time, or at least at that time, that as you rolled with the theme, that you kind of let whatever manifested or didn't manifest in the previous year, does that kind of affect how you decide we're going to go with this next year? You know what I mean? So
Right,
we're
sure.
going to go with the year of expansion, but I didn't manifest everything I wanted to last year. Do you let that play a part, or do you say, I'm rolling with this, regardless of what happened last year, regardless of what we didn't achieve or we wanted to, we're going to roll with?
Most definitely. I think that I've learned early on that, man, you should never put a time frame on what it is that you believe that God is desiring to do in your life. And, you know, you're going to end up being miserable if you if you say, I want things to happen, I want things to manifest, and I want things to do this and want that. And we ought to have goals. And I think I speak to this a lot. We ought to have goals. We ought to have plans. If you don't plan, you plan to fail. And I believe that you ought to pursue a thing. You ought to pursue whatever it is you believe that God has put in your heart. And you ought to go after that with every ounce of strength that you have. But at the same time, I believe that I look at a brand new year. Whenever it is that I'm focused and I'm faithful and I'm pursuing God, I look at it as really a clean slate, as a fresh opportunity, as another chance, not a second chance, but another chance. But those things that did manifest, we're grateful for them, and those things that have not manifested yet, we're still anticipating for them. And here, 7 years later, we're still believing God and anticipating what it is that God is going to do in our ministry. So it's not really contingent upon what has happened as relates to things and stuff and occupying land and things of that nature, as much as it is things that we haven't manifested in as the body of Christ. Because my wife and I, we have the pulse, have our finger on the pulse of the ministry. You know, we get a chance to kind of see where we are, kind of get a chance to communicate and conversate, counsel, love on people of truth and love, and that's really a blessing that we're able to do that. And so because of that, having that shepherd kind of ministry, to where shepherds ought to smell like sheep, we ought to be with sheep, do life with sheep, but then at the same time having that prophetic being, that prophetic ear, that prophetic edge to ministry, hearing what God desires to do in the ministry, all of that plays a part. So manifestation to advancement was just us kind of moving forward. And you didn't really tee up the question yet, but I'm gonna back down and I'm gonna let you do it. This show, Angelo. Let me let you ask the question. I answer the question. Let me stay in my lane.
You good. So speaking to advancement, going from manifestation, when you got to advancement, what is it? I want to make sure I ask it right, because you just spoke to not being so much the physical, not so much having much more land and much more this, even though we all want that.
Sure.
The goal is more so, what are we doing spiritually?
Sure.
When you look at the year of advancement, what was it that you felt as a body of Christ hadn't happened yet? I know, and you say this a lot, we won't be church as usual. Mm-hmm. So the year of advancement, what were you looking for Truth and Love to do that you hadn't seen be done in ministry yet?
Sure. I've been blessed. I've been blessed to see some very powerful, prolific ministries. Been affiliated with some, was a member of one. So I don't think it was so much of what we haven't seen. I believe that God wanted us to be able to manifest in the area of us advancing in what it is He called us to do. That first year was challenging. We was nomadic, where we were moving around from place to place. We spent first 6 months, Monday nights in the Word in Rains High School, going from the chorus room to the science wing to the library to they just kicked us all around. Rains was good to us, so I'm just kidding when I say that. But we was going all over the place. And then June of 2015, which we officially we was 6 months old as a ministry, but a year old as relates to doing the Bible studies and things of that nature. And so we moved over to Main Street. Was a blessed privilege going to Main Street. We were at a beautiful facility, 7137 North Main Street, and just a beautiful facility. And it even though God opened the door for us to do that. Shout out to Bishop Vaughn Monroe McLaughlin for opening up that door for us to be able to go and to come under their auspices as a ministry, and we was able to utilize that facility, partner with them in their outreach efforts and things of that nature. Yet and still, it was very challenging with the owner of the facility, who was not Bishop McLaughlin, and I'll say the former owner now because he's sold since we left and Potter South left after us. And so we went through a lot of changes, so we weren't able, I didn't feel like we wasn't able to fully do ministry the way that we knew down in our heart and our soul able to do ministry. There was a lot of restrictions on the times we can utilize the facility. There was a lot of restrictions on what we can do when we was in the facility. There was a lot of restrictions. We was really handcuffed from doing ministry the way that we desired to do because it was not our facility. It was not what it is that God had for us fully. It was a stopping point. It was a breathing point. It was a learning point. It was all of those things. But I believe as we was leaving out of that first year into ministry, into that second year of ministry, I really sensed that God wanted us to advance and do the work of the ministry. And all this setting up and breaking down and just consuming our time. Nothing wrong with setting up and breaking down because we did that a little longer. But just being consumed with all of the minuscule things that don't have anything to do with why God birthed us in the first place. God didn't birth us to be in no tug of war with nobody about no facility and chairs and what time we got to be in, what time we got to be out. So it was challenging. But I'll take all of those things, all those lessons that we learned and being there at Main Street. And I'll do it again because it taught me about ministry. It taught me about business of ministry, how to do business, as the proverb writer says, do business as men. How, I love the Lord and you love the Lord. Just because I love the Lord and you love the Lord, that don't mean that we're not going to sit down at the table and do business and talk about what needs to be done and talk about how things need to be done. Also taught me about when God opens up a door of favor for you with someone, as he did with Bishop McLaughlin, that doesn't mean you got favor across the board with all the parties involved. So I had to grow up a lot. I grew up a lot as a leader, as a pastor, and really got the taste slapped out of my mouth when it comes down to real ministry. This is a school of the hard knocks, and so that year too, I was ready to advance.
So you spoke to growing, right, and then we cross over to 2018, I call that my year.
Yes,
year
sir.
Of maturation. Mm-hmm. And then as you do the numbers, and you show us the numbers as far as growth, 2018, 2019 was that boom. You go from 100 members, 200 members, then almost 300, 400 members in year of maturation.
Right.
Was that, I don't want to say a shock, I guess, as you're going through the year, you don't feel it until you're able to look back.
Right.
Do you believe that was preparation for that, those years of you having to bust down and do this and do all the minuscule things? Now the year of 2018, now the people are coming, right? You build it and they coming. Do you think that prepared you for that, or were you still in that learning curve where
Yeah, no, it was most definitely. I think it did prepare. I think that God never allows us to kind of walk in a thing until we prepare for a thing. And I really believe that. And then if something, where we get into something where we feel like we can't handle it, he gives us the grace for it. But before we got to maturation, it was the expansion. We expanded.
No, that's what I meant. Expanding.
Right, I got you. and so the mindset behind the whole expansion piece was getting our own, having our own facility, expanding from sub leasing. Wasn't even real legit leasing. We just was on the coattail of somebody else. Never signed no documents, never signed no paper, never signed nothing. But it was a sublease, and we expanded, and God gave us our own. In fact, the first message that I preached here at 1989 Dunn Avenue was "God bless the child that has his own." And man, it was, and then we had a hashtag, an epic move. The epic move comes in where Pastor Steve Wildman, who has now transitioned into California, his church name was Epic Church, and him and his ministry felt led of the Lord to come and merge with us at that time. So their first service was their first service being with us was the first service that we moved here on Dunn Avenue, and so that was expansion. And so we were kind of getting our legs wet, stretching out, renovating the place to the tune of about $50,000 that we dumped in this place. We changed out the tile and changed out the classrooms, painted the facility, did all we need to do in this former Garden City pool place, and made it to be what it is that it's a place of excellence because it belongs to God, and we've done the best that we can. So that expansion speaks to all of that, learning how to be building owners. We wasn't even. I'm trying to get my time frame right. There's a lot that's happening in this time. Learning to have a kind of place of your own, and then we kind of started going through stuff with the city and trying to figure out about the occupancy and the taxes and all these types of things. We're nonprofit, and it was just a lot of learning for us as we were expanding. Here we are a young ministry and a growing ministry ourselves, and now we bring on other individuals from a ministry that's already been established. We're inculcating them into our culture, bringing them on, and then still here on Dunn Avenue, as my aunt calls it, our wealthy place. People are coming by, drive-bys and all that, and then we're growing and growing, and then we come to the year of maturation. But I don't know if you want to say anything before I go to maturation.
Well, yeah, because it's always interesting when I look at things, and you say as an immature believer, but people who aren't believers at all,
sure,
the thought process is if God called you to do something, the way will be paved.
Right.
You won't have to. You won't have to go through re-renovating a building.
Sure.
The church will already be there, and,
right,
and 1,000 people will be already knocking on the door to come in. But yet that's not how it works.
Right. Exactly.
At any time through these years, did you question, was this really God?
Right, I got you.
As you're learning these things and going through all the different nuances, did you ever question, man, God, did you really call me to do this? Am I just doing this on my own? And how did you deal with that?
Well, I don't think I ever questioned whether or not, because it was I'm like a push to get me out of Philippian Community Church. Me and my wife talk about this all the time. I'm gonna use the way you say it and use one of your words. I would have never, in a million years, thought I would have ever leave Philippian Community Church. I mean, that's just me, and my wife can attest to that. And then whoever else feels that way, that's on them. I feel differently about that. There's no way in the world you could have ever told me that I was leaving Philippian Community Church. When I was talking about PCC to like DIE, I mean, eat, sleep, breathe, as much as I am TIL. And that's how committed and how dedicated, how faithful. Of course, I can't feel the same way about it as the senior leader did. But the point is, I'm trying to make is that it was such a push to get me out the door. It was such a God move to get me doing what it is I need to do. I never questioned whether or not God called me, but I all the time question whether or not I was equipped to be able to do what it is I need to do. I never had been the point man, never had been the senior leader, never had been the person that's out front. I was always neck down, is what they told me. Deacon Earl Callahan always talk about, hey, we need you from your neck down. We don't need your opinion. We ask you what color you thought it needed to be and all that. What time we knock off and knock on and all that. They said they want me from a neck down. So that's my highest and best use, in my opinion. It is the gift of service, the help, the whatever needs to be done. As we were setting up for this today, Angelo was struggling with the camera. I put the mic down, had to push him out the way, had to get the camera, get my camera to do whatever I need to do. I'm only kidding. He had it under control. The point I'm making is I don't mind doing that, and I'll do that. And I believe that every leader, before you're a good leader, you got to be a good follower. You got to be a good servant. And I'm still serving, just not serving at the same capacity. So not knowing how to lead, really. I just didn't know how to lead. Not knowing how to, manage. You talked about how I show you guys the numbers from time to time. I don't show it all the time. To show you guys how the resources and the people and all these things that God allows us to be able to come through our ministry, and the in our context is monumental for us in our perspective. And I didn't know how to manage all of that and deal with these thousands and thousands of dollars and things of that nature. So how did I deal with that? It wasn't so much of I didn't feel like I was called. It was me knowing that, man, I'm lacking. Then I learned from John Maxwell, the law of the lid, that how the first law of leadership is that your organization, whatever it is that you're doing, is only going to go or to grow to the capacity of the leader, to the lid. So I'm the lid, I'm the limitation. God, to all my deep people, God is in control of truth and love, but ultimately as being the leader, I knew I needed to grow, so I gave myself over and bathed myself over into leadership books and leadership material, going to leadership conferences, sitting at the feet of great men of God that are excellent, that are leadership par excellence, that I consider just leaders of leaders, gleaming from them, learning from them, sponging from them, stalking them. I mean, do whatever I need to do to learn, and sitting down, looking at my sphere of influence, people that God has put in my life, that are really well with budgeting, that do really well with budgeting. And obviously I ain't get with nobody that can talk, because they're really well, that are really well, that do really well with budgeting and finances and pulling on their brain, dealing, talking with individuals and all various types of leadership. That's what I needed to do and I had to do, and I think that has helped. That has been key to my survival in ministry, is my obedience to God and my commitment to Him and keeping Him first and all of that. Again, to all my deep people, I understand that, but at the same time, there are so many pastors and so many leaders that fizzle out and that burn out, and they get so overwhelmed, they get so frustrated because of the rigors of ministry. You know, how do you spell effective ministry? You know how to spell effective ministry? WORK, in all caps. Right. That's how you spell effective ministry. It's some work. It's a work. Work. Ain't no way you want to slice it in that. It is some work. But what has helped me, I believe, submitting myself to men of God, people of God that have been where we are, and are in some semblance where we're trying to go, sitting at their feet, learning from them and their experience, and not necessarily knowing that I need to go through what they went through, but learning from them. I think it has helped us, man, cut through, maneuver through, and really get us in a position where we're light years ahead of where we should be at in ministry, because I gave myself over to learning and studying and then implementing it. Of course, the hand of God, the anointing of God, the favor of God. Don't forget that part. Gotta slide that in before we get into the emails. Send all emails to dbaker.com. Now I would. I like wood. All right, anyway. I'm sorry. Go ahead. But anyway.
No, speak to, and I like it because when you go from advancement to expansion, maturation, and then that year of acceleration, which was 2019, and I had the privilege, the honor to be a part, to see how you were able to add ministries. The outreach efforts went from here to different communities in the city. How was that, being able to claim that, right? The year of acceleration, and then to be able to see it. It started to come. I know we started to do more of the food. Like, everything was happening.
Yes, sir.
As you called it.
Sure. Yes, sir. Amen. I think that it's because of the prior year, the year of maturation. We took the time and really tackled some difficult things, went through some difficult things. We were talking as we was getting together. Angelo don't give me no heads up, y'all. Y'all don't feel sorry for me, for your poor pastor. He don't give me no heads up on what we're going to talk about. I found out about it when y'all found out. Just a couple of seconds. We were trying to figure out, we was trying to remember one of the years. I couldn't remember one of the years, and the year was this year of maturation. And I said, no wonder I couldn't think of that one. That's what I'm trying to forget. Because 2018 was a rough year. It was rough. I felt like a bow wow wow. And rough. It was a rough year, and it was rough because we went through a lot of growing pains. A lot of had a lot of things that we need to deal with chemistry wise, as we had these individuals, new believers like yourself, and people who I was their first leader, I was their first pastor, individuals coming in, but then we had other individuals who kind of been in the things of God for a while, but kind of have gotten away from church or gotten away and wasn't attending church anywhere. Then we had some folk that just wanted to transfer in, that type of thing. So we had all of that, and the young pastor trying to learn and trying to come into his own and all that, and all of us trying to come together and do what we need to do. Had some growing pains, to say the least, throughout that year of maturation. So to answer your question, that I believed in my sha-na-na that we couldn't help but accelerate, because I believe this, and as much as true as we continue to go on, is whenever it is that you dial down and whenever it is that you ground in ministry. And I believe that much of where we're going is based upon where we've been. So when we're grounding, when I say grounding, we're laying the groundwork. We're doing all those things that are not sexy. We're doing all those things that are not things that people think that when you talk about God is calling you to do ministry. God is not calling you. No, yeah, exactly. what we got put out of our facility at the beginning of that year of maturation because of Fire Marshal Bill coming by, shutting us down because of this cold and shutting us down because of that cold. All while we at time of celebration. God, he does things in such strategic way. Not only did we get put out of our facility right around this time in January of 2018, so we're celebrating a new year of ministry. But then while we did that, it was a closing of this facility where we had spent all of 2017 raising $50,000 for down payment to be able to put down on the facility, and we closed on the facility on January the 3rd, the day before our anniversary. And so here we got all these mixed emotions. I'm in the back over there, it rains. I'm over there crying. I can't believe we back here, it rains. I couldn't believe. I'm like, the brother was trying to figure out what in the world wrong with him. Suge and RJ back there, my wife back there. I'm leaking like a faucet, because I'm like, no, what are we doing? We're going the wrong way. What's going on here? But God was faithful and God was good. And again, I take all those lessons and I applied them, and I wouldn't change it. As difficult as that was, I wouldn't change it, because we learned much. So the point I'm trying to make is that, man, those things that we had to endure and those things we had to go through in that year of maturation, that where we didn't skip over, we didn't cut no corners, we grounded and we grinded and we did what we need to do. Those things that Jesus said, there's some things that you ought do, but then there's also some things that you shouldn't leave undone. And we've never been in the ministry that just don't that's ashamed of real effective ministry, which is WORK. We're not ashamed of work. We're not ashamed of rolling up our sleeves and doing what we need to do. And so we did all of that in that year of maturation. So I knew in my sha-na-na, we're gonna help but accelerate. We're gonna help but move forward. We're gonna help but because of the fact that all that we had been through. We had been through a lot. And God had been good to us.
Well, and then 2020 came.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Boom.
I remember the message, 2020 vision.
Yes, sir.
And you know how that motivation is, that feeling of the beginning of the year. You get that word, and
yes, sir.
Everybody ready to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And then COVID. Then COVID hit.
Yes, sir.
And like a lot of time, we thought it was a breeze, all to be over.
Yeah.
You know. And it was a difficult year. We lost a lot of members. I guess not just physically, people died away from just being involved.
Sure.
Right. How was that going through that year?
Yeah.
Right. As you come to the close, COVID is still at that time. It's still in our midst. We still to this day. We wearing masks. The world, you even started to preach on the new normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
The new way of life.
Right.
What was that like?
Right.
Having to kind of deal with that and still have to, you still got to preach the word. You still have to do what you have to do, even though everybody else, and nobody in particular, but just how the world is, they're now using this as the crutch. They're using this as the reason why we just can't do it, or we don't need to do it, or why would we do it, right?
Exactly.
How difficult was that, having to deal with that?
I think that it was very challenging. I think that coming into 2020, of course, we're graced for this. We were trying to really think about we just and my wife really was kind of got really arrested with that whole grace for this theme. And so I can't even take any credit for that. But the fact that this was enamored. This is our 5th year. 5 is the number of grace. And she's just like, man, I believe that's it. I believe that's what God has spoke, that we're grace for this. And I go with her batting average. Her batting average is pretty good when it comes in my book. But the thing is, when we got in the thick of 2020, March, when everything hit and everything began to shut down, man, we had in the back of our mind that God had already prepared us for this time, for this moment. And man, nobody on the planet had ever experienced a global pandemic. Nobody on the planet, no one knew what to do and how to do it. We was kind of taking it not week to week, we was taking it hour by hour, trying to watch the news. I don't think I watched that much news, all of my life. I don't think I watched that much news, because not just trying to make sure that I stay safe and keep my family safe, but now I'm responsible the Truth and Love Nation, and so what it is that we do when it comes down to congregating, it comes down to gathering, in a sense, that's my responsibility as a shepherd, to protect the sheep of God, to protect the people of God, not just to be cavalier and just letting people just come and just do what we ain't worried about. That's just not the way that I view the pandemic. To each different strokes of different folks, people do whatever they want to do. But this is Pastor Kobe perspective, so you're gonna ask me from my perspective. So it was challenging. But once again, Angelo, I'm so thankful that I have been connected to men of God, that where I didn't have to go through this season alone. I was able, as Moses did with Jethro, Moses, who was wearing himself out, counseling all the people, just wearing himself on the ground. His father-in-law came and said, bro, the thing you doing is not wise. You're going to be dead in a second trying to deal with all these millions of people. And Jethro was literally eyes for Moses. And here I connected myself to individuals that could kind of help navigate, and you kind of can see what's going on. Of course, having your ear towards the things of God. Of course, spending time with God, but at the same time, kind of seeing what other ministries are doing. I got a lot of calls from other pastors and other ministers saying, hey, what are you guys doing? Or what you think about this? Y'all shutting down? Or when y'all coming back? With that type of thing. So it was a day by day, hour. Some days it was an hour by hour thing when it comes down to how we were going to do ministry. But I think that God, the way that God has wired me and conditioned me to be able to strive for effective ministry, that kind of rhymed. That almost a little poet, and you know it. You heard that? The way that God has wired me and conditioned me. That's it. To do effective ministry. I think that I'm not afraid of WORK. And I'm not going to. And it's probably one of those things that I say is one of my strongest attributes, but at the same time, it's probably one of those things that probably is my Achilles heel at the same time. Because I'm not just going to lay down. I'm not going to lay down. I'm not just going to wave the white flag. And so with that being said, again, it's not being rogue. It's not being renegade. It's not being all deep. But I knew I needed to do what I needed to do as being a spiritual leader, as being a spirit for nobody else but Truth and Love Ministries. They're looking at me for my commitment and my, as I used to say during that time, stand in the pocket, that quarterback that stay in the pocket, hang in the pocket, that Peyton Manning, that Tom Brady, that Dan Marino, they can stay in the pocket, may not be as mobile as a Michael Vick or a Lamar Jackson or somebody, but can stay in that pocket, hang in the pocket, and do what needs to be done. And so I took on the mindset that we're first responders. I took on the mindset that I need to model consistency, model faithfulness, model faith in this time, and that's how, and that's really how God kind of nudged me to do, and you guys follow suit, and I'm grateful for people like you and others, but you on set with me, so I thank God for you, for people like yourself that stayed in there, all those tapings and recordings and redoing them and doing all these things that we did, so we could be able to present the spirit of excellence on whatever it is that we were doing during the time we were, quote unquote, not gathering. We never really stopped. We was here every week. We had a small remnant of people, whether it be the praise scene, the musicians, multimedia, especially during those times of Thursdays and our Bible study nights. But we were always here, but we kind of scaled back, of course. But you guys have stayed with me and been in the pocket. And because I see your faithfulness and your commitment and you're willing to want to serve God and obey God and follow your pastor, that helps me to continue to do what I need to do as well. So I appreciate you.
problem. Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
For all you do.
Hey, thank you for all you do.
One thing to me that's interesting about Grace for This was that, at least for me, I couldn't see it until 2021 when you look back
Yes, sir.
and say, man, we went through all that,
Yes, sir.
but we
Right.
still here,
Amen.
right? So the
Amen.
Grace for This kind of more hit for me. The following year, we like, God, man, we went through a lot, but
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
you know, we still here.
Exactly.
Speaking to you, standing in the pocket, because you know I always make that joke with
Right.
you. But when everything stopped, when people stopped preaching, regardless if because they felt safe or whatever the reason was,
Sure.
you did not stop.
Right.
You came
Oh, he for real.
Yeah.
It's in his words.
Yes, you was like really committed though to continue to preaching. Even when we did the recordings, I mean, you didn't just put on the top; you had the whole outfit on.
Right.
There
right.
was nobody in the church.
Right. Exactly. Nobody.
Nobody in the church, but you still preached as if the church was still full. Though,
Right.
Was that difficult? Like doing that, and when I say difficult, not just the actual doing of it, but even having like the build up to know that I'm finna go in front of a camera though. Like my people are not here,
Right.
but I'm finna go in front of a camera and still preach just as hard as if the church was
Right.
full.
I would say yes. I'd be lying to say if it wasn't difficult, but I think it's on different levels. I think because I'm a pastor's pastor, some of the guys bother me all the time where I be outside with the people after service and I just be out there shucking and jiving and be talking and be seeing what's going on with them, praying with them, what's going on in their life and all that. So I love the people that God has assigned to me. I do. I just love people in general, but then I have a special love, a special passion, my wife and I, for the people that God has assigned. So it was difficult for me not seeing the people that God has assigned for me. Now everybody who was here and was hanging with us, they
Everybody wasn't mad.
they didn't have that same love affair as I was at. The absence didn't make their heart grow fond. But so that was difficult. But I think that part of it also nudged me to make sure that I do my best. That part also nudged me to make sure that, man, whoever it is, and this is how ministry is, whoever. It's not my responsibility. I feel like Karl Malone. Karl Malone called himself the mailman, but Scottie Pippen said the mailman don't deliver on Sunday. Made him choke on them free throws. But anyway, I felt like the mailman it's my responsibility to deliver it. I don't know. People tell me about attention span. I never stop preaching. Short little 20, 15-minute messages. I'm trying, Angelo. God knows I'm trying. Every day I walk out and I walk to that stage. I say, I'm going to give them 45 minutes. It's going to be 30 minutes. It's going to be 45. I haven't done it. And so, this is my mindset that we're going to do our very best according to our budget, according to my limited resources, my limited knowledge, and the people that we have that serve with us. We're going to give it our very best. We can't be on the scale of this ministry or that ministry, this person, that person. We're going to do the very best that we can. So we poured a whole bunch of money into our equipment, into our presentation, into our lights, into our camera, into all of that, our sound, our audio. And then also when it comes down to the presentation of the word of God, I'm gonna give it my all. God has called me to be able to do that. And number one, I'm gonna give God my very best. I'm gonna do my very best every time because I'm doing it for him. If I'm not doing it for the applause of men. I'm not doing it for the response of people. I'm doing it for results because I am a pastor, so it's for results. And so whether people get it or not, whether they was listening or not, whether they were tuning in or not, whether they were subscribed or not, whether they was walking with us or not, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. We walked through the book of Jonah. We walked through the book of First Peter. We did what we need to do on those Thursdays and other series I'm probably forgetting about as well. We just did what we needed to do. And because that's how God has conditioned us to do so. And I believe that, the emptiness of the room it didn't really bother me because we started with nothing. It was my wife and Kendall, and she was pregnant with Carson. My wife went out a month after the ministry started because when we did the Bible studies, the first Monday in June, was the first Bible study. She had Carson the first Monday in July. And so my wife was out, so sometimes it was just me and Ms. Wise and just or me and some other people that were just kind of trickling in, just coming by to support. So a crowd doesn't bother me because it's just a handful of people or nobody. It was it's a little mental thing. You gotta get yourself kind of psych yourself out to know that that there's an audience beyond this room, and that's kind of thing that is always an audience. And one, God is always watching, and God is always listening to what it is that we're doing and saying. But then my mindset was to psych myself out, say there's an audience beyond this camera. As you and I are doing right now, I'm not speaking necessarily to you, but I'm speaking to the audience beyond on the other side of this camera. And that was kind of my mentality. You had to. We did some messages and put them kind of in the can or in the vault, as we call it, to where they were just previously recording in case something happened, in case the media team gets sick, in case I get sick, and all this stuff. So we would still have something. So it was sometimes, man, there wasn't nobody in there but us, and so it was challenging at times, more times than others. Especially you add all of that in, and I'm gonna be quiet. You add all that in, and you had all the deaths that was going on during that time. One particular recording that we did, I'm not gonna say the name of the message because I may re-preach it coming here soon here, but it was one of our faithful individuals died that same day. Early that day, I got the news right after noonday. This was on Thursday. Got the news right after noonday. Went to heaven, and man, that thing it shook me. It shook me, and the message that I was putting in the vault, it had to do with opposition, had to do with Satan attacking the church. And man, it was a lot. It was a lot. And because of God's grace and because of God's mercy and because of his hand being on our lives, man, we survived.
Now, how is it, and my question I'm asking, coming out of 2020, everything that we experienced, going into 2021, it was the year of alignment. What was God talking to you about and showing you? Now, we coming out of the year 2020, which was bad, but yet 2021, it wasn't like COVID was gone.
No, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We were still limited to, we should have been limited to how many people were here.
Sure.
We still were to the point where we were wearing masks. People need to get tested. I mean, as soon as you sneeze nowadays,
Yeah, exactly.
you need to go
Exactly.
and get that thing
Exactly.
checked. What was God showing you?
I never made you
Yeah,
go
I'm
get
good.
tested for it.
Well, you did.
Okay.
He made me go.
I ain't going. No, Angelo, I think you need to go get tested.
Yeah, it hurt me too.
Go ahead.
What was God showing you that coming out of that year? Like I say, it wasn't like things were just great. We were kind of adjusted to the way life would be at that time. What was God showing you was aligning at that time?
I think our posture. I think we did the thing that we needed to do, as we're still doing. We're still being cautious. We're still being safe. We're still not being rogue. We're still not being defiant. We're still, as you keep alluding to, we're still wearing our masks. We're still, to the best of our ability, social distancing, so to speak. So I think we were cautious, but I believe something, kind of quickened our spirit to really understand that, all right, man, enough of this in the bunker stuff, enough of this allowing what is going on to dictate where we are. And again, I'm not talking disparaging, because there's men of God and pastors and churches that I love and I honor and I respect. And man, they got more anointing, more wisdom, more favor, all that, and they pinky nail than I got in my whole body. And so I'm not, and they haven't come back to ministry. They have not come back to having service and all that stuff. So I'm never talking against. And that's really sad in the society we live in. You can't speak where you are without like offending somebody else. So I'm not talking against nobody else. This is my perspective. I'm supposed to ask his pastor what I think and what we did and why we do what we need to do. So I'm just being honest and responding. So again, there's no knock to anybody who's doing something differently. So I believe for me and for Truth and Love Ministries, 2020 knocked so many things out of sorts, knocked us out of alignment. And so God wanted us to come into alignment. Those individuals, that got caught up during this time, that where the church of God, our fellowship was their safe place. Be that as it may, however you want to slice it and dice it, man, people should be mature enough to where they have a relationship with God on their own. People should be mature enough that they don't have to come to a facility. People should be mature enough they don't have to call their pastor. They don't have to call their ministry leader. But that's just not everybody's, that's just not the truth. And I don't care what church you go to or who your pastor is, those are some individuals that need this accountability. They need this fellowship. They need this brotherhood, this sisterhood to be able to stay straight. And so we had individuals that went back to the world, went back to the club, went back to drugs, went back to this and went back to that and just was wilding out. And I mean, so we had those corona casualties, people who may have succumbed to the virus in a physical sense, but then we had those corona casualties, individuals that succumb or use or allow the virus to be something that they were going to use as an excuse to get them to the place where they're going to get out of the house of God. And so I felt in my heart that God was calling us into alignment, that no matter what the world is doing, we're going to be on post continually as we already were. We're going to be on post. We're going to do what we need to do. We're going to stay in the pocket, and we're going to align our lives to seeking him first and all his righteousness. Where, to be honest with you, where our lives should have been at from the very beginning.
So now, and it's I always like how when you preach or you speak on certain things, I'm able to kind of see where it falls in line in life. And you preached one time, or you were talking about one time, that the church has always
Yes, sir.
been under attack.
Yes, sir.
Right? We don't even know the level of the attack that they were under
Sure.
in those days, but yet we still are under attack. And even when COVID is gone, there will be another attack on the church,
Exactly.
right? But you continue to do what needed to be done, and I think that applies to us in life. Whatever we're trying to do, there's probably going to be something that could possibly stop it.
Most definitely.
But we don't, or we shouldn't, just let it stumble us up.
Exactly.
We should keep going.
Exactly. Very good.
So now we're in year 2022.
Mm-hmm.
A little different, a
Yes,
little
sir.
better. I think people could breathe a little bit.
Right, sure. Even if we're not supposed to,
Even
we
not
are.
supposed to be, right? Right. People have kind of adjusted to the way things are.
Sure,
The year of elevation.
sure.
Speak to that and talk about what was the mindset, the thought behind now. Let's elevate.
Very good, very good. Good question. Again, I'm hearing this for the first time, so I'm trying to buy myself a second here. No, I think that we kind of spoke to it because so many of us were intentional about alignment, and I really saw in our ministry, I really saw growth. I saw growth in myself personally, not in teaching and preaching things of that nature. And as relates to leadership, the way that I deal with situations, how I deal with certain difficult situations, things that transpire. I saw a lot of growth and development. So I was intentional, not just throwing themes out there, but very intentional on bringing my life into alignment, and others connected to truth and love properly, bringing our lives into alignment. And once again, you can't ground and you can't pour a foundation and you can't do all that God desires for you to do, or do as much as you possibly can as God desires for you to do, and there not be elevation, and there not be advancement, and there not be expansion, and there not be God allowing us to be able to walk into what it is he has for us. And that's just a part of serving God. I think sometimes, we err on different extremes. Either we only want the blessings, either we only want the name it and claim it, blab it and grab it, call it and haul it. Or the other extreme is we only want to say, it don't take all that. You just need to pray. You just need to love God. You just need to fast. You just need to call on him. You need to do it. And we have those extremes, but I believe that it should be a balance. I believe that if I'm again, the second or third time I mentioned this verse of scripture, if I'm seeking him first and all of his righteousness, the end of the verse does say he will add these things to me. And so if I know I'm being strategic in maturation, I know there's going to be acceleration. If I know that if I'm being strategic in alignment, I know there's going to be elevation. And the verse of scripture that God put on my heart was at 1 Peter 5:6. It says, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, And he says, in the proper time, English Standard Version says, due time, King James, in due time, he will exalt you. He's going to lift you up. And that is what I believe that God is doing when as relates to elevation. It's not talking about elevated money, not talking about elevated in cash and cars and clothes, but I believe that God is exalting the body of Christ in this dark time that we're living in this chaotic time that we're living in this stressful time that we're living in. God is allowing us to be lifted up, elevated up to where we can be able to let our light so shine and our lives be so lived the way he can get the glory and he can get the honor. God is lifting us up with all of the bedlam and all of the atrocities that's happening on every hand. God is not lighting us up to put us under the table or put us under a bush, but he's elevating us or lighting us up so we can be able to add darkness and add value, as you alluded to early in the beginning, not to have church as usual, but to be who it is that God has called us to be. So that's the mindset behind the elevation, and where we're just going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to step into what it is that God has for us. We're going to continue to walk into what God has for us, not just as a church, but as a people, as individuals, as business owners, as teachers, as doctors, as lawyers, as parents, as sons, as daughters, as husbands, as wives. We're going to keep on walking into what God has for me. And so this needs to be what it is that we have in the forefront of our mind as we go through this thing called life, that I am to count it all joy when I fall into divers temptation. Why do I count it joy? Because I know that God has something for me. I know God got something better. Better is the ending of a thing. I'm about to sneak up on the preach. Oh, but the ending thereof. And I know that there's better coming. There's more coming. If God wanted me done, I ought to be dead. But because I'm not dead, there's more on the way. So that's the mindset behind that elevation.
All right. So before we go, kind of speak to what is it in the physical that you would like to see Truth and Love accomplish in this year.
In the physical people, I want to see the physical people step up to the plate, step up to the plate and stop hiding under the cover of COVID and stop. And then we got to be cautious. We got to be safe. We got to be whatever. But I fell asleep last night on a big game. I don't want to date this episode on a big game. I fell asleep on a big game, and it was
the stadium was full.
It was full of people. And then we see stadiums, whether it's college football, whether it's NBA, whether it's NFL, whether wherever it is, and we're talking about the festivals and the concerts and all of that. Not that we look at what they're doing and we set our pace off what they're doing, but if they're gathering and if they're coming together and they're not so petrified over what's going on, why can't the people of God do what we need to do? So I would love to see us just step up to the plate and just be the people of God and do what God has called us to do. I don't think that's necessarily where you was going at with that question. As I drop my water, as you see there, you see this is what we do. We just real. Let's make sure it's real life. Even as I drop my water and God allowed it not to spill, right. I believe that God. So I believe there's some things that we're trying to accomplish as a local church. But again, I'm not going to take the trap of holding God hostage to a time frame, saying I want us to build out. We've been trying to build out the dome for a couple of years. We've been trying. The parking lot still don't look the way I want it to look. I mean, so there's things that we want to do in the physical as a ministry, but all that stuff will come. It's going to come according to God's timing. It's going to come according to God's purpose and God's plan. Maybe, just maybe, God is slowing us up from doing all this and pouring all this money in this facility. This may not be where He wants us to be. Maybe He wants us to move us up the road, around the corner. Maybe He wants to purchase something, buy something. Maybe there's a church somewhere that are not coming back to their physical facility and never gonna come back. Maybe they're gonna go online permanent and they want to sow into us a facility. They want to sow into us a business. Maybe one of these big box stores who's going out of business but yet own their facility. Say, you know what? I like what y'all do. I see y'all work in the community. Let's sow this facility in your ministry. Maybe that's what God is up to. I don't know. But there's a lot of things that we have on our bucket list. There's a lot of things that we have on our vision board. There's a lot of things that we're bathing in prayer. We're asking God to, we're calling these things into the kingdom, calling resources, and we're going to do our part, and we're going to sit back and watch God do His.
Well, thank you, Pastor.
Well, thank you, Angelo.
I appreciate you. I really want to do the different things because, like you spoke to earlier, I know myself, and this is me being guilty, sometimes get wrapped up in the physical or the natural aspect of expansion, advancement, elevation.
Sure.
Right. I always say, well, Lord, I've been trying to make this money.
Right.
This it. He want to put it in my
Right,
pocket.
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
But it's more than that.
Sure.
It's a lot deeper than that.
It is.
And that's why I kind of wanted to get into like the mindset of when you go with the theme, what's behind it.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Awesome.
So,
It was really good topic, and real good conversation. And again, y'all found out about it when I found out about
right
it.
before we press record.
Exactly. So it's all good. It's all good. I appreciate you taking me down memory lane. Kind of conjured up some emotions. Almost had me crying 1 or 2 times, but it's all good. So it's all good. I'm glad I can talk about this all day long.
And again, thank you, TIL Nation, for tuning in. I hope you guys got something from this conversation. Like always, we hope that God has gotten the glory.
Yes, sir.
Which we always hope. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And again, like always, we'll be back next week. Here comes the church.
Here come the church. Peace out.